Calvin Williams. I'm a senior from Cincinnati, Ohio, studying wildlife. I was really excited to work on a project with the physically handicapped because I have a few special connections with people that are physically handicapped. My youngest sister, Cecilia, has a genetic disorder, and that's caused a few different physical and mental disabilities. So, as you can imagine, there's many struggles trying to raise her through childhood. Uh, she can't feed herself. She can't, move around on her own. She can't bathe herself. So these were things I grew up with and knew how to handle. I also volunteered at a summer camp for children that were physically or mentally handicapped. And every kid had a unique set of abilities, and I made a lot of personal relationships there. And I think that my experience working with the children with physical disabilities really added another level to this project.
Hi, I'm Jameson Pierce. My background in history on people with disabilities begins with growing up and not having much direct exposure or knowledge of people with disabilities. I did not have anyone in my family or anyone as a close friend or in a family of close friends that had it. So for a long time I really didn't get any kind of direct personal exposure to people with disabilities. I would say that my first experience in this came in high school, my junior year, when I volunteered for the Special Olympics that took place at my high school. That was a really good experience. I got to work with some of the kids that came out that day that both had physical and mental disabilities. It was a good experience. It taught me a lot. I mean, my knowledge is still very far from being expert on this, but it was a good experience to kind of get my feet wet. And then my knowledge of this has increased as my girlfriend switched her major to early childhood education and exceptional needs. She's taught me a lot about people with disabilities and kind of how they function and how they work, and it's really interesting.
Hi everyone, my name is Priya Raju and I am currently a senior here at Purdue University. My experience with students with disabilities is actually not very significant. I grew up with little exposure to them. There were not very many students who were disabled at my high school or elementary school. So primarily my exposure started with my time here at Purdue. Like I said, I am a bioengineering major with a concentration in pharmaceutical process engineering, and my freshman year and sophomore year I was part of EPICS. I was part of three teams. Started off with ODOS, which works with the Office of Students of Disabilities, GLEE, which has a partnership with the elementary school in Lafayette, and GDAT, which is sponsored with it's called CROI House, which is a stroke rehabilitation program located in Ireland. So with this major, specifically during my freshman year, my project was to create a device that would help students with arthritis open doors around Purdue. And with the research that I did with the DRC and through this program, I realized that there was a lot of room for improvement within Purdue itself and what we can do to help our students. So from there, my interest in medical devices started, and in addition to just making the device itself, it's just increasing accessibility for these people and what we can do to make their lives easier.
I'm Austin Flagger. I study building construction management here at Purdue. I'm a senior. And a little background history for me. This project was good for me because I come from a background in athletics. I was an athlete here at Purdue. And through that and through my life in athletics, I've been able to meet several fellow athletes who've been disabled in some form or another. And I swam with them many years. A lot of times, got beat by them. They're really good athletes, and as it went on, we became really good friends. I had them both my good friends went on to swim in college. They went on to become Paralympians for the U.S. And so that's more so my background with people with disabilities. My two friends, one has cerebral palsy, and my other friend was born with only one leg. And as I said, they both went on to become Paralympians, and it worked out very well for them, and I'm very happy for them. I was happy to have those friendships. So this project worked out really well for me to be able to draw upon that history in my life and be able to work with it and improve on that.
Hello, my name is Logan Dexter, and I'm from Crown Point, Indiana. I do have some experience with people with disabilities and knowledge of disabilities through my high school because I knew many students who had a physical disability or a mental disability, something. I also volunteered with Best Buddies, which was a program that I went down once a day and helped out with students with special needs, and I helped the teachers as well. I also have experience and knowledge of it through my girlfriend, who is studying to be a special ed teacher, and she, I guess you could say, drops some knowledge on me every once in a while and helps me a lot with this project that we are currently on. So that's a little bit about me.
The movie we selected for our cultural immersion project is Forrest Gump. It's a classic, it's a good story that a lot of people know and love, about a man who grows up with some physical disabilities in his early childhood and a little bit of mental disabilities as well. So one thing that really was common in the movie that we kind of carried into our project is that people with disabilities are often treated differently, and sometimes even unfairly because of their disability. And that's something that we felt really resonated in the movie and was important to kind of incorporate into how we synthesized our project. Another thing from Forrest Gump that we thought was important is that sometimes other people don't have exposure or knowledge of people with disabilities, and that can lead to both positive and negative responses. A lot of cases it seems negative, and you see that in the movie, where other people don't really know how to treat or how to interact with Forrest, and so that was something we also felt was important. So this led to our three preliminary assumptions for our cultural immersion project. Our first assumption is that people with disabilities need improved facilities at Purdue, as in physical facilities both for access and to assist them with any kind of disability they might have. Our second assumption is that people with disabilities don't have the same access to resources as typical students do at Purdue. And this is something that we thought might be present on campus, it might be an issue. Our third assumption is that people with disabilities at Purdue also need an improved social atmosphere and understanding from the community around them. Like I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of times people don't have a knowledge or understanding of people with disabilities, and I think that it's really important that in a social context, as well as all the physical facilities that we strive to put together for people with disabilities, that we also incorporate.
So as a group, we participated in 3 cultural immersion activities, and the first started with myself attending an EPICS team that's partnered with the Disability Resource Center, their mid-semester design review for their team midway through the semester. Their team is currently focused around 2 projects, and I will get deeper into them further along, but the first one is called ATS and the second one is called ATG. The second one was to volunteer at the Assistive Technology Center at Purdue, which is just a center that helps students with disabilities get access to information technology. The individuals that work at the ATS are trained to teach people with disabilities, work with them, help them, and most of all be patient so they are able to get the same access to these things that that us non-disabled people can as well. And the third was to correspond with City Bus, that primarily does all the loops around campus, the transportation, and to talk to them and figure out what accommodations they have and what we can do to improve that. Like I had mentioned about the 3 cultural immersion activities, the first one was to attend a mid-semester review with the EPICS team that partners with the Disability Resource Center. And I think this was a really great opportunity to see what our Purdue engineering students have been working on to increase accessibility and promote equal access to all of our students around campus. The first device that was demonstrated during this review was an automated tour guide. So essentially, what happens during this review is there are many individuals that come from engineering companies such as Caterpillar around the Lafayette area, and they review the projects that the students are working on, give them feedback from a company and industry perspective. So the first one, like I mentioned, was an automated tour guide device, and this device, the students are in the process of creating a mobile app that maps out Purdue's campus. So in addition to a map, since they are visually impaired and they're not able to see the map on their mobile devices, they're doing recordings of how to get to different buildings from different parts of the campus. And as you can imagine, this is a pretty difficult task because there's so many different paths you can take based on where you're starting, where you're ending, and it can become a little tedious. So right now, they're in the process of recording a lot of the voice pathways and guidance and putting this into a mobile app, kind of like a beta version. And they started off with a GPS chip that tracks their pathway if they're going from, let's say, Lilly to Armstrong. What path do they take? And then they record an MP3 file of exactly what they're doing. The second was the automated table stand, which is for students who are wheelchair bound. This, instead of having to get up from the wheelchair and sit in another chair while taking a test, they give an automated table stand that will attach to their desk or attach to their wheelchair, and it's automatic, so if you push a button, it'll get taller so that they can either stand up, do a presentation, or sit down and take a test. So this just makes their lives a little bit easier, so they're not moving from wheelchair to a chair, or it just gives them much greater accessibility.
So for the second activity that we did for the cultural immersion, we wanted to learn more about the Assistive Technology Center here at Purdue. So through our research, what the Assistive Technology Center, or the ATC, does is it promotes accessible information technology infrastructure at Purdue. And the way that the ATC does this is that they help students and faculty who have disabilities, or faculty that teaches students with disabilities. So they do this by providing a means of access to information for students, faculty, and staff with disabilities. There is consultation and training to those who teach students with disabilities here at Purdue. And there is consultation and training for those who support access to information technology for people at Purdue. And so this is a very helpful resource to have here at our university. It definitely is a strong point for students that have disabilities. And I actually, as I brought up earlier, I have several friends who are disabled, and when they were looking at schools, that was actually something they brought up. They had said, I know that Purdue is very inclusive of students with disabilities, and that was good for them. And if you need information based on this, you can always go to, you can email them at atc-info@purdue.edu, or you can just visit the ATC Center, or the Assistive Technology Center. It's located in Stewart Center, room 111, and it's open every day of the week, actually, so that helps out a lot. In the ATC, students can use a wide variety of assistive technologies. These include standalone equipment to help them, adaptive software, and even adaptive hardware. So that really helps them with the ability to...
As I briefly mentioned in my introduction, one of the things physically handicapped people struggle with is transporting themselves. Many of them can't drive themselves or need help moving around. So tasks like getting around campus or going into town to go shopping can be a challenge. And this was something we wanted to address in our project. So we reached out to City Bus for help. And as it turns out, City Bus has several programs and features that help physically handicapped people at Purdue and in our community get from place to place. For starters, all of their buses have handicapped ramps or handicapped lifts to help people in wheelchairs use the bus system. There's also electronic signs on board and outside the bus that display all the route information, so people with hearing disabilities are able to use the bus system. And there's also speakers that announce the route information, so people with visual disabilities also have access to the buses. There's also a program offered by City Bus called Access for people with severe disabilities. Excuse me. And the way Access works, if you apply for it and qualify, they'll give you like private transportation, like virtually anywhere you need to go. So City Bus has a lot of great features that makes it possible for handicapped students to get from place to place around campus. And around Purdue, there's even been efforts to improve accessibility for the physically handicapped. Nearly every building on campus has special entrances and ramps for people who can't use the stairs, and the automatic door openers for people who can't hold the doors for themselves. However, we did find out that many buildings only have limited accessibility entrances. So it may be a bit of a hassle for students trying to get from class to go around to the far side of the building just to get in and go back to the side they needed to get to. But buildings also have elevators for the physically handicapped, and more classrooms are installing special seating, special desks for the physically handicapped. And restrooms also have accommodations for the physically handicapped as well. So these are all different ways Purdue has made it easier for the physically handicapped to get themselves around campus and just function as a normal student.
For the preliminary assumption slide, for the first assumption, people with disabilities need improved facilities at Purdue University. This is refuted simply for the fact that although there is always room for improvement, Purdue is doing a very good job in accommodating people with disabilities, whether it be through wheelchair accessible classrooms, wheelchair accessible exam rooms, or different exam rooms for people with disabilities who need more time. Purdue is doing very well in actually giving these students the materials they need to succeed. For the second assumption, people with disabilities at Purdue do not have access to the same resources as typical students. This is refuted because at Purdue, if you have a disability, then the school will accommodate you for that disability, whether it be giving you a different form of the information or whether you need more time. Simply the fact that you have to tell the university and they will accommodate you, find some way to accommodate you, to find these resources in a different method if you can't receive it in a certain way. For the third assumption, people with disabilities at Purdue need improved social atmosphere and understanding from the community around them. This is confirmed because everyone needs a community to be a part of, and people with disabilities are no different. And it makes it easier for anybody, whether it be somebody with a disability or somebody who doesn't have a disability. It makes it easier for them to succeed if they have a community behind them and are a part of the community and can be part of the social aspect of life at Purdue University. For the future application slide, for future applications, we have opportunities for growth with the DRC, which is the Disability Resource Center, and accessibility within Purdue. So basically working with the DRC to find new ways to improve the life for people with disabilities at Purdue University. Utilization of assumptions made to find ways to improve initiatives that are already in place, improving upon the systems that we have to help people with disabilities that are already in place, so just improving upon them, and creating an atmosphere of community for students with disabilities as well. Basically making an atmosphere or a community that students with disabilities feel like they can be a part of and can help them out if need be, and basically to support them in whatever endeavors they decide to go with, and that is what future applications can be.